So again, what's special about Angi is we have a ton of demand. So I think that differentiates us. We're one of the largest marketplaces in this space. I think we had 22 million service requests last year. So tons of homeowner demand. So you could be a pro that's just, again, looking for 3 to 5, custom leads per month. And you could be the largest pro in the US. We work with some of the largest service providers in the US, serving thousands of leads per month. So you can really fill your calendar with whatever demand you're looking for.
Welcome back to another episode of Untapped with UpSmith. Alex and I are thrilled to have Rachel Zepernick with us today. Rachel's a great friend. She's a leader, vice president, general manager at Angi, doing really important work around the enterprise segment. Angi, of course, is helping to make sure that people can access home services, both on the consumer side and also supporting tradespeople as those pros go and make a great career for themselves. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Very excited to be on the podcast.
Hi.
Most definitely.
Go ahead, Wyatt.
We do this podcast to be able to share perspectives with pros and tradespeople all over the country on ways to help grow their businesses and help those trades companies win. And so we're really excited to have you aboard to learn from your experience and get a chance to share some of those insights with our listeners.
I'm just excited because I've known Angi's list my whole life. Like, I've known Angi forever. I'm like, she's a celebrity. We have a celebrity on the podcast today. Let's go.
Whenever we bring Angi Hicks to a trade show, all the pros are so excited to meet her. I mean, she's been in the industry for, I think, almost 30 years. So definitely a familiar face.
And we have a celebrity on the podcast today because
sure.
You're at Angi and you hang out with Angi. So I'm very excited. Rachel, we usually dive in with having people tell us about their childhood. So let's just have a really casual conversation real quick. But we want to know, like, how did you get to where you are now? What was the path? And you can go as far back as you'd like.
Sure. I grew up in Kensington, Maryland, which is the burbs of DC. So right outside DC, about 30, 40 minutes. And my childhood, I would describe as chaotic in like a really good way. So I am one of four. So it was a very loud, we're all very tall, very active. There were like 100 sports between the four of us. So just very full calendar. So that to me is calm. So I thrive in chaos, I think. And I think that's sort of driven my career and my personal life from there. I'm always very busy. I like to fill my calendar. In my work experience, I think I've always looked for high growth roles and kind of fast paced companies. So that's kind of where I got my start, is the very chaotic 4-sibling home.
I'm curious if there's a moment from childhood that stands out, Rachel, around your love of building things and getting a chance to grow companies entrepreneurially. Anything that you reflect on and say, yeah, that was a pretty good signal early on of the path I was on?
I wouldn't say there was like one moment, but I started working pretty early. I think my first job, I was like 13. So I just kind of always wanted to, and maybe this was something my mom or dad kind of ingrained in me, but I always wanted to do things for myself. So I didn't like asking for money or allowance. I wanted to be able to earn that myself. Not very glamorous or sexy jobs, but, I worked at Ben & Jerry's. I worked at an arcade. I worked in a grocery store. So anything I could do to kind of build my own wealth was exciting for me. And it was great to work with other people and kind of start my leadership path, but it started very early for me. So
you have really strong arms.
And then
if you were at Ben & Jerry's for any length of time. Yeah. I'm telling you, ice cream scooping is hard.
I appreciate
it. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I did eat a lot. Everyone always asked, did you eat ice cream? I mean, I ate ice cream for lunch all day long, but just constant ice cream. So
I love it.
I'm still a big ice cream
You had a
fan.
real question.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
And then, it's really fun to think about ways that your career then played out through consulting and working with lots of different companies to get into the work you're doing now. So wonder what that transition was like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I spent like a decade in the industry post business school. So I worked at LK Consulting for about 6 years in home improvement and building and construction. So dabbled across industries, but honed in pretty quickly on that industry and worked across verticals within it. If you can name it: roofing, siding, furniture, cabinetry, flooring. I mean, any vertical within the space I've worked in. So helping clients kind of think through how to grow their business, sales and marketing strategies, new segments or materials to enter, especially like material trends in the industry over that time. So kind of got my initial view of the industry then. And then I've worked at Angi for about 4 years, and I manage our enterprise sales strategy team. So again, like you mentioned, Wyatt, supporting our largest clients, our enterprise level clients in growing their business, which is really exciting. And we just have this kind of special relationship with them where we're speaking with them a lot and we're getting a lot of pain points from them, a lot of, demand drivers, really hearing what makes them tick all the time. And it's such a great way to learn about, the industry in general and to find opportunities to better our product across all sizes of service professionals. So be able to kind of delight the customer who's even looking for a couple leads per month versus, thousands of leads. So I really enjoyed the role, but about a decade in the industry.
That's awesome. Now. And set the scene for people listening. Like, what characterizes an enterprise segment customer at Angi? What do they look and sound like?
Yeah, it's probably different for a lot of companies in the space. For us, it's really about what you're looking for and how many leads you're looking for. So again, what's special about Angi is we have a ton of demand. So I think that differentiates us. We're one of the largest marketplaces in this space. I think we had 22 million service requests last year. So tons of homeowner demand. And hundreds of thousands of service professionals across like 1,000 tasks. So really any home improvement job you want to get done, we can offer from a homeowner and a pro perspective. So you could be a pro that's just, again, looking for 3 to 5, custom leads per month. And you could be the largest pro in the US. We work with some of the largest service providers in the US, serving thousands of leads per month. So you can really fill your calendar with whatever demand you're looking for. So I think that's something that's kind of special about what we offer. But as an enterprise client, you get account management, you'd have kind of a more regular touch point with some of our senior sales leaders. You'd likely have some analytics as well. Maybe you're looking at your ROI more kind of regularly on a more monthly basis. We're optimizing your account. So it kind of depends how much of a touch point you want with us, but that can be highly beneficial for someone buying, thousands of leads from us.
Totally. And it's interesting. The challenges that people are facing right now have some similarities across the country as it relates to lead generation. And so I'm curious how you would define what you're hearing from customers right now in the enterprise segment. What are they facing?
That's a good question. I think we're going to talk about this today for sure, but this kind of labor shortage is massive. So it's a huge problem. I think we ran a survey recently. It was 70% of respondents said the labor shortage was a hurdle. And I think another interesting stat was 66% of them said they could grow their business if they only had the labor to support it. And that's so interesting that, like, in order to make this industry grow and to make, service professionals able to grow, they need to be able to have the labor to meet the demand that they want. And I think that's really important for service professionals. I also think it trickles down to the homeowner. If there's a demand shortage or a labor shortage and there's a ton of demand, that means your timeline's delayed. So you may not even get your job done this season. That means your prices go up. So I think this is a really big issue that affects every single home in the U.S. and that affects every homeowner in the U.S., but also all the service professionals kind of meeting that demand. So that's kind of one of the major issues that we hear about. And again, I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time on what's driving that and how to kind of combat that. But one of the major issues we're hearing is, we can't take on more demand if we don't have the labor to support it.
Totally. No, it's a problem we think about all the time. And maybe that's a good transition to talk about Angi, what it means to be sort of a home expert who's serving this problem for enterprise customers there. Help us get up to speed on how you all set up the work.
Yeah. So I think at Angi, our mission is jobs done well. I think you might have seen some of our ads recently where we've talked about this. And I think at its most kind of core explanation, jobs done well is that match between the homeowner looking to get the job done and the qualified service professional who can execute the work. So I think that's our main goal, is being able to provide those matches of the qualified professionals to homeowners seeking the job. But I think jobs done well is beyond just that match. It's also making sure that we're kind of informing that homeowner of what the process looks like. So you'll see a lot of articles and kind of content on our website and beyond. We work with a number of news sites as well to kind of talk about cost guides, what this project might cost, what might drive costs, what questions should you ask your contractor in the process to kind of like make a more confident homeowner in the discussion process. So I think we try to be an expert in the industry as well, how this process works and how to approach the process. So you'll see a lot of that as well. But I'm super proud that Angi's also investing in trying to solve the labor shortage. So a number of things that we're working on, I can get into those in a second. But I think one of the key ways to solve the shortage is to have companies like Angi who are in the space, really putting their money where their mouth is and start investing and attempting to solve it.
Let's get into it. Do tell.
That's great.
What is Angi doing to invest?
Yeah. Definitely. So we just launched a couple months ago a trade up day. So we launched a marketing campaign that is seeking to destigmatize the trades, which is a massive problem. I think the stigma of not going to a 4-year college and potentially entering a different career is the major problem. Again, we can get into that in a second. But in launching the trade up day, we also created 3 key initiatives. One is scholarship. So we're helping 4 students get trained in the trades. We launched a partnership with a company called Blue Recruit, which is a software. They refer to themselves as Match.com of the industry. And they really are. They're matching employers in the industry who are looking for qualified skilled labor. I think they have like 55,000 job seekers on their platform. They partner with 600 trade schools. So really impressive platform. And what's great about our partnership is that any Angi Pro in our network has free access to the software. So again, just trying to reduce the hurdles for our network and how to build out the supply they need to meet the demand they can get on Angi. And then lastly, we also started a podcast. Highly recommend checking it out. A little plug for it. It's called Trade Up with Angi Hicks, our co-founder and the founder of Angie's List. It's super inspiring. She has pros come on in the Angi network and kind of talk about their story. How did they get involved? What was their childhood like? A lot of them actually enter the trades later in life. So how did that process look? What do they like about their jobs? So just kind of inspiring stories. And again, destigmatizing how entering the trades can be an incredibly fulfilling and lucrative career. So it's been exciting to hear those stories. We get a lot of testimonials ourselves, but it's nice to see those stories more publicly as well.
That's really cool.
That's great. And as you're making those investments, what are you guys learning? What are the things that are coming out around how to effectively fill some of these skilled labor gaps that companies are facing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, just taking a step back here, it's so intriguing as a mom. And I don't know why, if you feel this way, or Alex, if you have kids, but there's like no stigma with my 3.5-year-old in the trade. He's obsessed with the trades. Like, he's correcting me. We're driving down the road. He's like, no, mommy, that's a front end loader. That's not an excavator. And like, we're going to construction birthday parties. And it's not just he's obsessed with the trades. It's like society is pushing it on him. Like, all the clothes you can buy on Amazon are fire trucks or construction equipment. It's, again, construction birthday parties. We're reading construction books every night. So it's so interesting, the shift of, in toddlerhood, society pushes this on you, and construction is great and the trades are great. And there's something in this kind of like middle school, high school time frame where people who like to work with their hands might want to get involved in the trades, where society says like, no, you should go to a 4-year college, which again is the answer for some people and not for others. So I think that like gap is what we're trying to solve for, is as people age out of the industry, how do we kind of incentivize people to enter the industry? So that's kind of something that we're thinking about. We're talking about with other companies that we partner with of trying to solve that gap of again, that's part of why we're thinking about like the scholarship, trying to get people into the trades who may not be able to otherwise. So I think that's one of the key learnings that we've seen, is that, and that I like very much see in my day to day, of that shift in society pressure from that, toddler to middle school timeframe. But it's such a lucrative career. So I think this is, you hear it on the podcast with Angi Hicks, and you hear it from the pros that I talk to, day to day, and that our sales team is interacting with. It's like 90% job satisfaction. The average in the US is like 35%, significantly more job satisfaction. It's lucrative. Compensations, like I think plumbers and general contractors make like 20 to 50% more than the average wage in the US. AI is not replacing these jobs. One thing you hear a lot on our podcast is like no 2 days are the same. So you get to work with your hands, it's creative, but you're also doing sales and marketing and learning all of these other like amazing skill sets in the process of the job. So it's really creative and lifelong skill sets, little to no debt. So there's just so many reasons why this is a lucrative career and why it is a fulfilling career. So I think that's one of the learnings too, is that is not coming out necessarily yet. And we need to focus a lot more on that and all of the campaigns that we're thinking about.
You just unlocked such, I'm like, you're right. How many dump trucks and construction-based things have I bought for the 3-year-olds in my life?
Yes, 100%. And there's no option. Like, it's not like the society is pushing us towards that. So it's it's so interesting and so in my face every day now, that kind of difference between that and the 15, 18 age frame. So
it became endless. I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah. We also, a lot of the pros that we had on our podcast so far talked about, if you want to get into the trades, how should you? If you're in high school. And it's interesting too, it's just like get your hands dirty, call a local pro and say, hey, my ice cream job didn't pay nearly what a laborer would get paid. And then you have cash, you have on the job site experience. So there's just so many easy ways to get kind of early experience if you're interested in that path or interested in working with your hands. Again, there's so many jobs you can have in the trades too. You could do sales or marketing, or you could work with your hands and do really beautiful work. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Well, just like you, we talk to pros every day who talk about how increasingly difficult it is to get high quality leads to go then run their teams against. And I'm curious about the reasons behind that from your perspective. Why is it that leads are becoming increasingly expensive and pros are facing more and more challenges about the top of funnel challenge to go solve?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually one of the things we hear is less of the top of funnel, but they're also talking about kind of close rates. And you see this in some of the macro hurdles that we face. So, with interest rates and financing options being more limited right now than they were in kind of the COVID timeframe, close rates are just lower. So you kind of need to fill more top of funnel in order to get more homeowners to actually close the job. So you might hear like tire kickers, but these are real homeowners who really want to get work done. Then they see the price, like, I can wait till the end of the summer or whatever that is. So I think that's a real hurdle that we talk about with our pros of, how to create urgency and how to, talk through, instead of just giving a price, let's talk through what drives that price. And I think about this, I just got a fence done at our home. It was an Angi pro who I found through the Angi network. And they were great. And I kind of like talk through what drives this price. Is it, the length, the material, the height, what is really actually driving the price? And if we want a different price, how do we get there? What can we do? So I think, having those conversations and that flexibility can help some of that close rate. But we definitely see some macro effects on, the ROI of any given lead.
What really resonates with us is increasingly we hear it's so important to follow the right practice and set of processes once you're in that home inspection and working with a homeowner. And one of the things that we've been helping contractors with is helping support people for offering multiple options for service. So here are a good, better, best alternative to be able to resolve your problem.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Something as simple as offering 3 high quality options can drive that higher close rate, in part because it's a more consultative visit in that sense. But we'll love to hear what you're seeing too.
Yeah, that's so important and such a great path forward and good advice for a service professional. I think there's like an education gap too with the homeowner. Most homeowners aren't like negotiating day to day with everything they're doing. You go to the grocery store and you buy the product for what it is. You don't say like, hey, can I get it for $1 cheaper? Or like, what drives this price? It's just the price. So I think that's something that we talk about on the cost guides of, what can drive the price, try to, again, like help the homeowner be more confident in the discussion. But I think the pro can also be involved in that kind of negotiation process and offering up different options that we can talk about price. We can talk about what drives this, and we can, think through how to make this work for you, versus one option feels very final to the homeowner and they may not be educated enough on the process to know that they can even have a conversation about it. So they just go elsewhere. So I think it's important to get multiple quotes to make sure you're getting a fair price, but I also think it's great advice to a service professional to be able to provide or kind of range for the homeowner within what works for them.
Totally. Completely resonates. Alex, you as a apartment dweller haven't had as much experience with contracting home service providers, but Alex and I were talking last week. We had an issue in Dallas where it was really hot. AC wasn't working. Increasingly, the summer temperatures are rising, and the home service professional who came out did such an awesome job of like really taking his time, probably spent a couple of hours with our family, like walking through all the different things that he had figured out on the evaluation. And you build a lot of trust quickly with someone who shows a real interest in taking care of you. And I'm sure you're seeing that from some of your higher performing enterprise customers too on the platform.
Definitely. I think what's so amazing is one lead from Angi can turn into multiple leads down the road. So our fencer, I gave his contact to 2 other people, and my neighbor got a fence for him too. So like the value of my lead that he got through Angi was significant. So I think word of mouth is still very common in the industry, still very important. Those kind of referrals to the neighbors is a really big deal when you're providing such an important service, especially one like heat in your or AC in your home. I think that's such a kind of critical job. So doing the job well, having that great service, you get so much more value out of every lead that you paid for. Your ROI just continues to grow as you get those referrals to the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is it easy to track the downstream impact of those follow-on referrals that come from your side, or is that more challenging to do?
Yeah. Much more challenging. We do talk about it with our pros, and some of them track it better than others. But it's tough to track, I think, even for service professionals who are very sophisticated. But those that do try to, especially if they're leveraging like a CRM system, there are a number in the space that are home improvement specific. They can kind of better tag some of the leads together. But it's a tough stat to track.
What are some of the more sophisticated companies out there doing as it relates to showing ROI on their marketing spend?
Yeah, I think one is like actually tracking it. So I think there's a lot you can do to optimize your account if you even have the knowledge to know what's there. So some people literally write it down. Some people have an Excel spreadsheet. Some people are using a better software to track that. But tracking not just on average, what's my cost of marketing, what's my ROI, but also by your different geographies, by maybe your different sales reps, by the different tasks that you're purchasing. How are you seeing your return or your cost of marketing? I think that helps. And then over time, there's going to be fluctuations. There are certain seasons where things convert better or convert less, or where there's spikes of demand. But being able to track that over time, you're able to kind of see where there's trends. Maybe oh, wow, this one sales rep has a really great close rate. But if I look down the funnel, the other sales rep is not closing as much, even though our ROI is great. We could actually have a better ROI if they're closing better. That's like learning you could take from one sales rep to kind of train the other sales rep and get a better ROI on the same number of leads. So I think being able to drill down, our most sophisticated pros are drilling down not just in averages, but in super specific across the funnel, from lead to appointment cancel to appointment close, sale, et cetera. Across all of their different kind of matrices. And we often help them with that too. Again, as an enterprise client, you have access to my team, our analytics team, to our account management team to kind of help you think through that process. And we can make recommendations for you where to shift spend to try to optimize what's working. So I think that's what the most sophisticated pros think about it in that way.
That's fascinating. Well, my last question on this topic is around like trends you're hearing from them as you have these conversations about places where they're saying, gosh, it would be so helpful if Angi could support us in growing in this way. Are there any patterns that you see there on the challenges folks are facing?
I think one that we're hearing, vertical specific, but one that we're hearing is the seasonal verticals. How do you fill your calendar for your crews off season? So I'll use painting as an example. really heavy, busy summer season, especially exterior painting. It's got to be warm in order to be able to paint the home. So I think we see major spikes in sort of the May to September timeframe. And then what do? You have these crews. You want to keep those crews because you need them for next year, but you need to find kind of jobs to give them. And there isn't enough demand to fulfill that calendar. So I think one of the things that we've talked through is looking at other tasks that make sense. So what are some sort of adjacencies that could make sense for your business to leverage the labor that you do have that's really high quality in doing other things? So one example with the painting space, holiday lights, depending on the region, is a really big vertical. It's obviously only in the winter, both taking them down and installing them. And it requires similar skill sets. You need a ladder. You need to be able to place them. There's sort of a install with the product and also a maintenance typically that you're paying. So I think it's kind of a similar approach and similar skill set. So thinking through, we kind of help some of our clients who struggle with off season to think through what are some other tasks that might make sense for your crew to get into to fill your calendar when you may not be as busy with your core product. And there are other ones, power washing. There's a couple other ones that you'll see in any painter's website. They'll do a couple of different types of verticals, but we try to help think through what does a typical painter do, for example, to help fill that calendar.
I love the example of maintenance plans too. They're saying like if we have some type of evergreen relationship with the homeowner and we can schedule somebody to come out, early October during what would be a normally slow season, but to do a tune-up and understand how things are working, that's something we've seen companies do really well.
Oh, definitely. I see it as a homeowner all the time, like, the landscaper, the pest control, all of those types of jobs. Honestly, as a homeowner, I don't want to have to think about it and remember to reach out to you. I just want it to happen. So it's easier for me. So I think that that can be really beneficial. Gutter cleaning too. We see a lot of those kind of subscription services, and a lot of homeowners like that. The ease of just, one sign up and let's move forward and you just show up. So I think it's a
lot of work, y'all. I'm telling you, I've been struggling with my window unit AC in New York City right now, but I'm like, I don't have to deal with gutters, so we'll see.
They said to buy a home. Yeah, we just purchased our first home last year. It's been from New York, so it's been a different process.
Yeah.
Good things and hurdles.
We started talking about the skilled worker shortage. It's definitely the mission that our company is focused on helping other firms tackle. There's nearly 1 million openings in the U.S. skilled trades market across construction manufacturing right now. Even with a really good jobs report last week, this number has stayed persistently high. Curious about some of the ways it's impacting Angi's business. And you talked a little bit about some of the investments you're making to help companies tackle it, but how do you all think about this strategically?
I'm not in the main.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the first of likely more to come of our investments in this space. It's, again, so critical for our pros in order to be able to grow. So in order for our kind of paying customer base, they can't accept more demand if they can't have the labor to achieve it. So I think that's just such a critical problem to solve. And again, calling out that it affects the homeowner too. We may not think of it day to day, but I've had quotes in my own home where, I tried to get on the calendar and they're booked for literally the entire season. Oh, how about March of next year? So I think it really does affect the entire US. So I think it's a critical investment space. And we see other companies starting to invest as well, other really large companies in kind of home improvement, retail, et cetera. Starting to think through scholarships, starting to think through like job fairs as well, and kind of this Match.com kind of connecting the skilled workers who can do the work and the jobs for the employers who are looking for them. So it's something we think about a lot. It's definitely a hurdle for our largest pros, but very excited about the investments we're making in the space.
They're exciting ones. Do you see any gaps in the market, places where, gosh, if someone were investing in technology to help solve a problem in this way related to this problem, they can make a big contribution?
Yeah. not necessarily a technology gap, but one massive gap is women in the trades. I think about this a lot. I'm actually very lucky. My team is like 40% women, and the enterprise sales team, the leadership team, is 60% women, over 60% women. So I get to work with a lot of women, but realistically, there are not a lot of women in the trades. I think the latest US stats showed like 10% women in the trades. Our survey had an 81% male response rate, so just dominated by men. I think what's interesting is the labor shortage wouldn't exist if women were in the trades at the same rate that men were. It would just be solved. I think there's a lot we need to work on as a society of destigmatizing the trades, but also a lot of kind of attracting people who aren't necessarily in the trades right now to the trades, like women. And I think in order to do that, there's like two key things that you should probably focus on to get any group into any industry. And I think one of those is hiring. And one of those is retaining. So in hiring, removing bias from your processes, making it a focus to focus on different groups that are not necessarily where you currently go. And then on retention, productivity, motivating your employees, which I know you guys think about a lot. And also I think mentorship is really important to kind of loyalty and retention. So when you have kind of new folks in the trades, like if you're hiring a lot of women into the trades, creating that kind of formal mentorship can help retain them. And I've started to see that in the last 5 years. A lot of the industry events I've attended, there's like a Women in the Trades event. We work with a painting association, speaking of painting, that has like a Women in Paint event, their big expo. So I'm starting to see those kind of formal mentorship opportunities, but I think that's another kind of key area where if you create those relationships and you create those formal mentorship kind of lines of mentorship, I think you can help retain folks who are not necessarily in the trades right now as they start to enter.
I love it. Well, I think it's time for our lightning round, which Alex leads for us, and I'll hand it to her to kick off. We'd love to get a couple of quick reads from you.
Let me add one other thing, actually, before we get into that, just on automation. We had a pro in as I think about like technology and kind of AI in the space, which I know you guys are thinking about a lot as a kind of software company, but one pro who joined our podcast said, something like, I don't see ChatGPT swinging a hammer anytime soon. And he's right. Like AI is not, doing the actual physical job, very much right. But we see a ton of automation in the logistics of the trade. So I think what's really special about being a technology company in construction is what you are doing is making those logistics easier so that the pro can focus on what they're best at, which is like doing the work with their hands and executing the job and doing a really great job, a job done well. So I think it's really cool to see a lot of folks entering the space. UpSmith as one, but you see like TMS software, so like truck management software handling fleets for some of the larger pros. You see CRMs who are, like I mentioned, home improvement specific that are working on, tracking your leads and estimation process and payment processes. You see like AI generated texting companies who can help qualify your leads. So again, I think there's a lot of different ways that technology providers can get involved in the logistics of the trade and again ease that kind of more painful upstream process so that the service professional can really focus on executing the work. So great time to get involved in the trades. There's a lot of opportunity in automation.
We couldn't agree more. Well, we're excited to work on this problem. Angi obviously is such an important leader for the industry. Thank you for sharing your impact that you're working on with us. We would be remiss not to get some lightning round questions in.
I would also be remiss not to say +1 to more women in the trades. I would be remiss not to say that. I'm like, yeah, she brought it up. Yes. Yeah. It would have come up. Don't worry. Okay. Lightning round.
Yeah.
I'm a book nerd. You can't see too many in my background right now, but there's about 400 in this 1-bedroom apartment. Yes. We would love a book recommendation from you.
All right.
What do you recommend, contextually as it pertains to leadership or the trades or anything like that that's really helped you?
Yeah. I'll do a book and a podcast. Replug on Angi's podcast, Trade Up, highly recommend. Also UpSmith's podcast. But I do think it's again, really inspiring stories to hear about people finding fulfillment in this career. So I love it. And a personal podcast rec is Smartless, which is Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett actually kind of talking about something similar, but with celebrities. So how did you get into film or singing or whatever it is? What was your childhood like? Again, just kind of inspiring stories of those traits. And then book-wise, I love the books Crucial Conversations. Trying to think if I feel like I have it here. I do have it. Whoa. Crucial Conversations. I recommend. It is a framework, kind of how to approach emotionally high stakes, difficult conversations. There are a ton of books on difficult conversations, especially in the negotiating space, but I think this one is a really good, how do you deal with objection handling when stakes are high? How do you kind of de-escalate? And actually our whole sales team had to read it, and we went through a crew cons training, which I also highly recommend. But just a great way to approach, honestly, your personal life too, but in your professional life, dealing with those kind of difficult emotional conversations that you might have with a client or customer or competitor or whatever it is.
Spouse. I've been married. Just hit the 1 year anniversary, so maybe let's go. I love it. What is a tool that you use in your life that's been invaluable for you? And we love it if it's underrated. It's okay if it's not. But, if you say my email, we're like, okay, we get it. But what's a tool that's worked for you?
Yeah, okay. Good question. Some like existential tools and then like an actual tool, which is a little underrated, I think. But I think for me, I see this a lot in like posts about productivity, but routine is very important to me. And again, maybe this is like being a mom, but there's just like so much going on in my brain that's taking space that has nothing to do with like important work and difficult questions I'm trying to answer at work. And anything I can do to routinize and remove me having to think about the little things, like instead of what should lunch be tomorrow, I literally made a menu for the month. I don't want to spend time thinking about it. We're just doing what's on the menu. So I think anything you can do to create some routine to remove like wasted brain energy on things that just like don't really matter can help you focus on the things that matter a lot. So that's maybe a little more existential, but I definitely am a person of routine. Our household is a person of routine, I guess. And then I think the tool I use I use an app called Cape, I think it's called. It blocks social media. So I love social media. I learn a ton from social media. I follow many things on social media, a lot of advice for parenting that I get from it, but you can scroll for hours and just not even realize you did it. So I block, especially Monday through Friday. I'm only allowed a certain amount of time. I think I should block it completely Monday through Friday. And you can like unblock it through the app. But I remember a little story for you. The first day I did it, I counted how many times I accidentally went to the app without even like thinking about it. It was 23 times that I just like my thumb went to it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should definitely block this during the week. So just like wasted time that you don't have necessarily, especially during the work week. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time on my job. I don't want to be wasting it scrolling. So I think an app really helps me separate that, and I'm choosing when I'm doing it to purposefully look at it. So
oh man,
I recommend an app.
The like phantom. I do the thing where you close Instagram and then immediately reopen it. Like why?
Right. Yes. And I don't even think about it. I'm like, it didn't even occur to me until I started counting how often I do that.
I've not heard of Cape.
So
woohoo.
Definitely. It may not be the best in the industry. It's just the one that is intuitive and worked for me. So
are there any, well, you actually already gave us a podcast rec. We haven't done this question in a while, Wyatt, and I like it. Rachel, what is a question that you think people need to ask themselves more often?
Whoa. I think it is a human nature, or it is in human nature to kind of blame a little bit, or to deflect blame from ourselves. So, if you're debriefing a meeting, I think you tend to say things like, in your head at least, oh, if legal had just, sped up that timeline, or like, oh, if I was on the product roadmap, or if this person gave this thing to me beforehand, I could have done better. So I think a question I try to ask myself at least is like, where kind of take accountability, like where could I have affected that meeting, both positively and negatively, things I did well and things I could have done better. So maybe that's a question I think anyone could ask themselves is like, how did you affect things and how could you change things for the better? Or what things did you do really well that you could leverage in other meetings versus that gut reaction to just be like, oh, it was other folks or other teams that affected it negatively. So ask yourself where you could have made the change or what you did great.
It is obvious that you are a good leader. I'm like, I bet your team has a great work life. That's awesome. Well, we're at time. So our last technical rapid fire question is, where can we find you? How can we support you?
For sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Zepernick. You can also find Angi, A-N-G-I. We've dropped the E in the list. But you can find us on all your socials, on LinkedIn as well. You can also go to Angi.com if you are a homeowner and you're looking to get work done and find a qualified professional to get that work done for you. We will match you to local pros so you can get your job done well. And if you're a pro, come over to signup.angi.com. We'd love to work with you and love to provide whatever demand you're looking for and whatever task you're looking for. So feel free to visit us anywhere there.
Well, Rachel, we're grateful for you. Totally. Thank you for spending your time with us. We're very much on your team. We're on your team for this big mission.
Yeah, we're pumped to continue to keep in touch and hopefully help combat some of the stigma that we see.
All right, take care. We'll see you next time on Untapped with UpSmith.